Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.
Welcome to Let's Learn here on the NCW Live channel, where we talk about all kinds of subjects. Today we're talking about a school bond for the Wenatchee School District to make improvements to Wenatchee High School. I'm Eric Granstrom, your host, and joining me to enter this discussion today, we have Brian Flonis, the Superintendent of Schools for the Wenatchee Public School District, as well as Eric Anderson, the Principal at Wenatchee High School. Gentlemen, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So this is actually phase 2 of something that was planned a ways back. Phase 1 was the $66.5 million plus project to improve the elementary schools that really needed it within the district. This is phase 2 specifically on the high school, right, Brian?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We just finished up the projects with Lincoln Elementary, Washington Elementary, and the Pioneer Gym. And in the process, when we were passing that bond issue or brought it to our voters, the high school was on the list. People in the community were concerned about the high school at that time, and so we made a promise that the high school will be the next project we take on. So that's phase 2.
And the ballots are coming out here. April 25th is the election date. 24th, excuse me. I want to make sure I miss it by a day.
April 24th.
We're talking about 120 million with state help in there as well to kick that up a little bit. Kind of give us the umbrella of what we're talking about and why are we here? What's the need, Brian?
Well, the need is that the high school wasn't built for the number of students that it has right now, and the fact that the high school is our oldest facility in the school district. It's 45 years old. In 1972 it was built for 1,600 students for 3 grade levels. They had 1,550 at the time. About 10 years later after that, our population dropped. We went to a middle school, 4-year high school system. We had 1,250 students. In 94, 95, our growth went back up, and that's when we got over 1,600 and started moving closer to 1,900. In 94, 95, we had to take the open space in the high school and convert it into a lot of basically cubicle classrooms in different sections of the high school that are not the size needed for high school students. And so we've been living with that for over 20 years now. And with that problem, you know, with the enrollment of 1,900, as well as the infrastructure and the useful life of our infrastructure, like our heating and cooling systems, our telephone systems, our technology and power available to the building, our kitchen facilities, we have a big need to replace a lot of that infrastructure. And also we need to add some additional space, like a music room out by the auditorium. We need to add some additional locker room space. And the outdoor athletic facilities are also in need of replacement because they're 45 years old as well, the track, tennis court area outside.
Well, we had a chance here not too long ago to look at the virtual tour, the 3-dimensional tour of the plans, and wow, that's fantastic. We're going to show a little bit of that here on Let's Learn as well. We've got Eric Anderson here today because I wanted, you know, Brian gives us a nice overview of kind of what the need is, but you live it on a daily basis. Your teachers, your students live it on a daily basis. 1,900 students, first of all, it sounds like one of the largest 4A schools in the state of Washington, is it?
I think we're still in the top 10 right now, so we are still one of the larger schools in the state.
And still living in a school that's basically built in 1972.
That's an accurate statement,
wow.
Yes.
Okay, so Eric, what's it like? Tell me about day-to-day school at Wenatchee High School.
You know, I think we hear quite a bit about the overcrowding situation that we have at the high school, and I guess what I want to make sure we're clear on is that overcrowding feeling is really about the additions that have been made. So as Brian talked about, we have added classroom spaces in areas that were never really designed to be classroom spaces. So that narrows some hallway areas. We create some pinch points in our building. So when students kind of, have that feeling of, man, it is really tight in our building, that feeling really comes from that kind of constant expansion that we've had over the years. The adding of portables in certain areas, which creates additional students flowing through certain areas of the building that were really never designed to have that number of students flowing through them. So when we talk about overcrowding, it's really that kind of flow through the building. Because right now we do have enough classrooms with our portables to accommodate the number of students we have, but it was never designed for that, obviously. I would also say that then the classroom spaces themselves, as we talked about, as you start to add and adjust other spaces and convert them into classrooms, we really have had to adjust spaces throughout the building, which really have created classroom sizes that are much smaller than current high schools. So, you know, in a current design of a high school, you're looking at 900, maybe 950 in a classroom space, 950 square foot in a classroom. We're sitting at about 700 is probably our average. So we've got smaller classrooms right now. We also have classrooms in kind of the center, center of the building. We don't have windows. We don't have light. As Brian talked about in terms of our HVAC systems, anytime you start to add on, you start to modify those systems. So we have certain classrooms in the building that will be either really warm or really cold, depending on the time of year, and that's tough. I think our maintenance staff has done an outstanding job in maintaining what we have, but the systems they were never designed to accommodate what we're using them for right now.
What's the time frame here, Brian? With this vote happening in April, what are we looking at as far as hopefully, passage, and then what? What goes next?
Well, passage in April would mean for a facility this big, because we are adding 150,000 square feet of new facility and 57,000 more additional square footage than the high school has right now. So there's going to take about 18 months to 22 months for just the educational design process to design the building, and then probably another 2 years to complete all the phases that need to be done.
We're going to talk here coming up in just a few moments with people that were on the Citizens Facility Committee. Tell me about that project and involving the community and involving the citizens to be able to have a voice in this. Why is that necessary?
Well, it's necessary because they represent our community, and we had at least 20 and maybe over 20 citizens who were involved in this process, and it was a complex process to try to find the right solution for the high school, and it took us about 18 months to study, look at different options, take it back out to our community, and come back and make some revisions, which has given us the final plan that came from the Citizens Facility Committee. So this project is representative of the voice of our community.
We also are going to talk to some teachers at the high school as well as some students about that experience on a day-to-day basis. I was thinking too, Eric, when you put up a wall to create, you take one space and divide it into two, is that also accommodating, I don't know how it could, for just the sound? I mean, just from one classroom to the next, you try to teach in one space, you got this other space that was originally in one space, now it's two spaces or three. How does that work?
Yeah, I would tell you that, the original design of this building in '72 was kind of an open concept with with movable walls. So you had some walls that were able to move. We've obviously created, those movable walls are no longer movable, they're permanent. But some of those don't go all the way up to the ceiling. So it was never designed that way, and so it does. You have a sound overflow without a doubt from classroom to classroom in some of those current spaces.
And interesting lighting, and as you mentioned, interesting heating or ventilation. Is that the case, right?
Yes.
No daylight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we've heard discussion about how they've described Wenatchee High School kind of prison-like the way the setting is now. So they're trying to add some windows, and we're going to talk with the Citizens Committee about where they came from, the need to this solution, coming up next year on Let's Learn on the NCW Life channel.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life Community Calendar at ncwlife.com.
Welcome back to Let's Learn here on the NCW Life channel. I'm Eric Grandstrom, your host, and we're talking about the modernization project for Wenatchee High School and a bond that will be coming your way. Election is April 24th. Joining me to talk about it now from the Citizens Facility Committee, we've got John McQuaig on my far left and
Eric.
Tyler Russell here. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So we talked with Brian Flonis and with Eric Anderson about the need. So talk to me about how you guys got involved and why you're involved.
Well, I guess I can go back to originally. I've been involved for probably about 12 years. And so the high school was one of the issues that we looked at that time. We looked at the elementary schools and kind of the needs across the district. And the school board put together a plan for a phasing of construction projects. So the elementary schools were up first, and Pioneer Gym remodel, and those were done, and now it's on to the high school. So that's considered phase 2 of the the original facilities plan.
Okay. Tyler, how did you get involved, and what's this committee been doing for the last, how long?
Well, I got involved first and foremost because I'm a parent of 2 students at Columbia Elementary School right now, 2 third graders. And I think there's just a need for a new high school. I'd been in the high school, we had toured it, saw that the facilities were, you know, in bad shape, and I wanted to make sure that the process was done correctly. I'd never been through this process before with a high school bond or a public bond like this, and I kind of wanted to make sure that everything was done well. And so far, it's been a great experience.
I like that. Concerned citizen.
Exactly, just a concerned
Okay.
citizen. Yeah.
So we know that there's overcrowding. We know the facility was built in '72. It wasn't really built for 1,900 students, for goodness sakes, and they've tried to do what they could along the way. So we know all that. So how do you fix that, and how do you figure out that this is going to cost us $150 million with state help?
Well, you start out by the district hiring some architects and engineers to help evaluate what's there and what the options are. And then we formed a committee that looked at a lot of different options. I think we looked at 16 options before we were done. So we looked at the idea of another high school, a second high school. We looked at the idea of turning Pioneer into a 9th grade campus, kind of on and on and on, remodeling the existing facility and sticking in that, and ultimately migrating to the plan that we got to, which is to build most of it new. So another 157,000 square feet of new classrooms, a new facility in a 3-story wing that would be added on, and then remodeling the other sections that haven't been remodeled to this point. And the high school's had some work done to it over the years, so we don't want to lose that. So the commons area was remodeled, the gyms have been done, and so forth. So you keep all that, and you do what needs to be done.
So identified targets, Brian and Eric mentioned the music room. I mean, we've got a world-class music program at Wenatchee High School, and if you haven't been to the music room, it's an embarrassment, honestly.
Yeah, a big example there is mariachi, which is world-class, and mariachi didn't exist in 1972 at Wenatchee High School. So they need room, and they've got a couple hundred kids in that program. So yeah, it's just things change over 45 years, and that's part of that.
Right. So let's talk about, okay, so what are we addressing here? We're the library, cafeteria kind of space, obviously classrooms, science, also some of the outdoor facilities. Kind of give us that thumbnail of what it's looking like.
Well, I think we're addressing everything. I mean, the really neat thing is they're gonna do some light remodel. They're gonna do some heavy remodel. We've got a contingency plan for not displacing the students, so we won't have a portable city out there. We can put students in one place while we work on another.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because you've got 1,900 people
Yeah.
that you need to try to shuffle around while this.
Right.
So say this passes in April, and then, okay, we're going to brick and mortar. Does that start right away this summer? Or does that go into next year? It's going to take a while, I guess, to draw everything up, right?
Yeah, it's probably a 3 to 4 year process.
Okay.
It's going to take a year or so to get the plans finalized and put together, and that'll be a big process. All we have right now is schematics of ideas, and so they're going to have to work with the district and with the parents and the teachers and so forth to determine what the real needs are and make sure that the design is right. So that's a big process that we'll go through.
Yeah, we have to remember this is a conceptual plan right now. The design, the ultimate design and the finished product will look a little bit different. We have some room to build on that, to improve it, and continue to work the problem over like we've done for the last 2 years on the facilities committee.
With the committee, do you look at other high schools around the state? Do you kind of contrast, compare, and say, okay, this is what we really need to do for our kids to make sure that they're getting an equal education?
Yeah, we did a lot of comparisons to other schools, and also once we got to the construction end and the estimates, we looked at what Moses Lake was spending and Quincy and others around. So yeah, we tried to get an idea of what was going on. We have a good group of consultants, architects that we worked with who have a lot of school knowledge. So that was really helpful because that's what they do.
And we're not talking just about classrooms. We're talking about the infrastructure too, like the HVAC system. And I was reading that the kitchen is 40-some years old, 43-year-old kitchen.
Yeah, 45 years old, like everything else. The HVAC system, you can't get parts for it. So they're scrounging on the internet trying to find parts for the system. I mean, that's where we're at. Another big part too is security, and obviously this is a school that was designed 45 years ago when security needs were different than they are today. So we really want to beef up the security in that school.
I think those that will watch that virtual tour of the first rendering of it, and you mentioned, Tyler, that this is our first look, you know, it might change a little bit here and there, but I mean, talk about a difference. Going from, as we've heard our viewers describe it as a prison to, you know, almost a day spa. Like, I mean, not really, but it's such a huge difference of allowing light into a learning environment.
Yeah, I think you have to strike a balance there. You know, you can't build something that has all the bells and whistles, certainly, but you want it to be aesthetically pleasing and fit with our community within the kind of the geographic design of our community. And it's in a beautiful backdrop there with Saddle Rock behind it. So I think when you talk about remodeling a high school, you want to make sure that it's utilitarian, but also aesthetically pleasing. And I love the contingencies with this plan. We have the ability to add 250 students capacity in the future by closing in a courtyard area. So there's a lot of options here and contingencies.
And that was my next question is, are we planning for the future as well? Are we planning for 20 years, 40 years? What are we planning for here?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of that's the big question we've been struggling with all along. The population in the district has been flat, and the population in the high school actually has been dropping a little bit. So what's the future going to look like? And the next question is, what's the future delivery for education going to look like too? Is it online?
Right.
You know, we have 250 students at Running Start. So we feel like this was the ideal plan to really set us up for the future, and if we need additional space, we can add it.
I'd like to add to that too, that Westside High School, the Tech Center are wonderful facilities that more and more kids are taking part in.
Right.
They've found that it gives them a good running start into a career. You know, that maybe they're not choosing college, but they want to get going on some career right after high school, and those are great facilities too. So I think we're seeing a lot more kids choosing that route as well.
Well, speaking of kids, we're going to talk to a student and a teacher who are living this every day of what it's like to be in the current high school. Gentlemen, thanks you for taking the time and coming in and joining us on Let's Learn.
Is your vehicle in need of a quick oil change or tune-up before hitting the road this summer? Stop by Quick Lube and Tune, the home of the good guys at 610 South Wenatchee Avenue.
Welcome back to Let's Learn here on the NCW Life Channels. We talk about the Wenatchee School District's measure to improve Wenatchee High School. And now to join us to tell us more about what it's like to be in the high school right now, we have Molly Butler, who is an English teacher at Wenatchee High School, and Gwen McQuaig, who is a Wenatchee High School student.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had the folks come in, kind of talk about what the school is built for and the student body, and that's the first thing I wanted to ask you about. I hear between classes it's kind of chaos.
It is. We have 10-minute passing periods, which is what needed to get from class to class. I timed actually one of my classes to get to a portable because there isn't enough space in the school. I can do it in 8 minutes and 30 seconds on a good day, where you're fighting through students trying to get to your classes, and hallways just aren't capable of holding that many students.
Have they tried different things as far as that maybe staggering bells or whatever to get from class to class? I mean, that's quite a challenge.
Well, the problem with that is that then you would have to create a schedule where you staggered. You can't determine where a student is leaving from and going to without a giant Jenga puzzle. So there's just too many moving pieces with 2,000 students. So.
Tell me about your classroom specifically.
Sure. My classroom is at the end of what used to be a hallway, and it does not have walls that go all the way to the ceiling. There's about a 3-foot gap between the ceiling and the top of the walls in the room to the hall. So the way it works really is, I like to think of it as everybody just gets to learn from me and my students, because there is no sound barrier whatsoever from my classroom. Everybody else can close their doors, but we get any noise that comes to us from anywhere else. So.
And the end of a hallway means that sound travels and hits the end of the hallway and then spills into your class.
Yeah, I mean, noise is just one of many challenges with that particular building, but certainly it affects what we do, how we plan, because our space is really close to other people's space. And so You really have to be ready to adjust sometimes if it feels like whatever you've planned in that day isn't appropriate noise-wise to whatever space you have. So
Now, English teachers, a broad brush. Specifically, what are you teaching? How many classes a day are you teaching?
well, we teach 3 classes a day with our current schedule. So we have, and I teach everything from 9th graders to 11th graders to I do intervention work with students and kind of one-on-one mentoring with some students as well. So there's lots going on all the time. There's lots of movement. Lots of needs, lots of learning needs, lots of, some students need more quiet for focus. Other students need to talk and be loud and process in order to learn that way. So we try and do it all, but we just have gotten used to being loud.
Sure.
Yeah.
How long have you been at Wenatchee High?
5 years.
5 years. Okay. So what's that like for you as a student and your comrades at Wenatchee High School to try to be in a learning environment that's a little challenged?
It's distracting. I know I've been taking tests before, and you hear the class next door is doing some crazy rowdy activity. In some of my classes, I've been listening to the math lecture that's happening next door instead of focused on whatever we're reading or working on, and that is just hard to deal with, with sound coming from 2 different sides and trying to focus in on what your teacher is presenting. It's just a distracting environment to be in.
So you've seen the virtual 3D tour and all of that. What do you think as a student about the potential? Now you're going to be graduated from there by the time this takes place, so it's for people behind you. But what do you think of it as a student?
I think it's great that they're adding, I read over a football field of new classroom space. I think that's going to be so helpful for each of the teachers to have their own space, because some teachers don't even have classrooms. They have desks and somewhere else, and they teach in other teachers' classrooms. Some teachers are in portables. I think it will be great for each teacher to have their own space and for each student to feel comfortable to approach that teacher in their space. I think it will just put everybody a little bit more at ease about the situation, and being able to learn and listen to one subject. You're listening to your teacher's lecture, not the next door one.
We've heard, I guess, descriptions of the high school the way it is and kind of built so long ago, and the way they've tried to make the best space out of it as they possibly can, and the lack of windows, prison-like. Is that accurate as a student?
Yes, I have 1 classroom with an outside window of my 9 classes. And
one with an outside window?
One with an outside window, and on the window, it's my French class actually, on the window someone wrote in French, "The sunshine is very beautiful." And I think that sums up how we all feel about the sunshine in that class. And it's luckily a morning class, so we actually get sunlight in there, and none of us are complaining when it's in our eyes. Believe me, none of us.
So as a teacher,
yes,
with the challenges of how many are, I know it probably varies as far as how many you're trying to teach at once, but in that space,
30.
30?
Yeah,
okay.
About 30. That's our class average.
Right. You make do with what you have, but you looking at the possible designs for what is to come, I would imagine it would have to excite you as an educator as well.
Absolutely. What's exciting when I look at that virtual tour is just how creative the space is, and what a variety of spaces there are for learning. I think right now, as we look toward the future and how to educate the leaders of tomorrow, we have to figure out how to provide them with as many opportunities to do things creatively and collaboratively and with technology that we can. And right now, with the space and with the just kind of our infrastructure the way it is, we're limited. We're limited in our ability to provide those varied opportunities for students within our building. I think we do a lot of things to get out and move around in the community and but inside our building, we really, like you said, have to make do with what we have, and that's exciting to think about how much just potential there is for new creative learning opportunities. I'm
Eric Granstrom. That's Let's Learn. Join us again next time here on the NCW Life channel.
For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.